It's almost the beginning of the school year. I mean, I know we're a few weeks into it, but I just came across, I had this little one. I have to tell you. Do you know a teacher's 3 favorite words? June, July, and August. I don't know how that is for parents, but I like that. Well, I'm speaking to the gospel today, about the workers in the vineyard, so I thought I'd start out with a little working story. The story in Matthew is excellent. Last week we heard about the merciless servant, and this week, and it sounded like a story of such injustice, of course, which it was. But this week we have a story of what appears to be an injustice on the part of the landowner, and it isn't that at all. He goes out several times during the day, starting early in the morning, to hire people to work in his vineyard. 5 different times, I think it is. And each time, of course, he finds people not having been hired, and he brings them into to his land to work it for the day or for the rest of the day, depending upon the situation. The last group might have an hour to work. And he tells his manager to pay them all, but start with the last one who is hired. Because he wants to teach a lesson to them. And he says, pay everyone the same daily wage, which, of course, the manager did as he was told. And the people at the end of the line, of course, have worked all day, and they see things from that perspective at the end of the line, so to speak, like a linear, view of what's up front. And by the time they get to the front, they're pretty excited. They think they're going to be paid a lot more than what they had originally agreed upon with the manager. Now, it doesn't work that way. They got what they had agreed upon, and they're angry because they think it's so unjust. They said, we've worked in the heat of the day, and you're paying us the same as those people who worked an hour, maybe 2 hours? What's with that? And the owner of the vineyard is standing there as the manager's paying them all off, and he says, listen, I've chosen to be generous. Do you question my generosity? I gave you what we agreed upon, and it is a just wage. The rest of them have been paid more than perhaps, yes, of course, what they deserve. And in a way, more than you have made, but it's all just, if not generous. Now, they have to leave, of course, satisfied with what they've been given. They may not be satisfied, but they've been adequately reimbursed. This whole story is something like going to New York City, and seeing these tall buildings. You're standing on the street, and you're looking up at some of the tallest structures in the world. And as you stand there, most of it, maybe you can see a few stories up. But that's about all you can see because of your linear view, straight up. But if you really look way back and stand way back, you are overwhelmed by the magnificence and size of some of these buildings. We have to stand way back to see what Jesus is trying to tell us about the generosity of God in this story today. It's beyond our imagining. For any one of us to be paid by God for our work to begin with, because after all, He has given us life. He has given us life, which means every breath we breathe during every second of our lives is a gift. And secondly, we owe him beyond our imagining. We just can't, we can't fathom it. We're looking straight ahead, so to speak, at what we've done, or maybe trying to look straight up. But the circle of life is called a circle for a reason. There's no beginning, there's no end to it. And we all stand in that circle, holding hands, so to speak. If we could hold hands around the earth, 26,000 miles, we wouldn't see each other in that circle. We'd see a lot of us, but very few compared to those who stand in the circle of life that God himself has created. I'm going to share a story Sunday, so I don't want to tell the whole thing now, about a young man, Jacques Fesch, a Parisian young man who was killed in France by capital punishment in 1954. He was a wretch of a man, but died a possible saint. And we might say, well, his punishment was deserved, and he became a saint in a very short period of time. How can that be? I mean, how can we look at a man who has had such a wretched life, and the last period of it, the last seventh of his life, he gets it right. Think of the thief on the cross. Do we begrudge that good thief his heaven? Do we begrudge Jesus his victory over wickedness, sinfulness, over the devil? And Jesus did come to fight that creature, on our behalf. And I have stopped to think regarding this gospel. How could we be unhappy with serving the Lord for 70, 80 years, whatever it is? Shouldn't we consider ourselves privileged? When actually, if we realize that we deserve far less than heaven forever. We've all sinned, and not the smallest sin could ever be made up for by ourselves. We used to call them venials, the small sins. The smallest sin could not be taken care of unless God himself took care of it for us, which he has done. Thank you, God. I want to leave you with a couple of announcements. First of all, we have a grief session, a support group that starts tomorrow, but I'm sure you can plug into it at any time. It's over in the office. I think it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon at any rate. Consider taking part in it. It's going to be 8 weeks now, and then 8 weeks after Christmas and Thanksgiving. My course on Jesus versus the devil, and they're not equal enemies, by the way. Jesus is quite a bit better, infinitely better, at the battle than Satan. My course begins tomorrow at 6:30 in the church. So we welcome you to that. And then we have our OCIA, the Orders of Christian Initiation of Adults, beginning this coming Monday over in the parish office building. We'd like to hear from you if you're going to come to it, but I'm going to come and take a peek at this course. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And it's a way for you to catch up on your own faith, by the way, even if you are Catholic. But if you want any of the sacraments, come on, take part in this also. And then finally, our faith formation. No, it's not finally. We have faith formation for the kids beginning on October 4th. You should call the office to register the children. But I forgot to tell you about this Saturday after the 4 o'clock Mass. We're having a free barbecue over at the gym. Okay? And finally, my story. It has to do a bit with justice and payment. So a pig walks into the bank one afternoon, and he speaks to one of the managers, and the manager introduces himself, and the manager says, "My name is Mr. Paddywhack." And the pig says, "Well, Mr. Paddywhack," he says, I would like to take out a loan. I want to buy some trinkets." And Paddywhack says, "Well, we don't lend money to animals." And he said, "Please," the pig said, it's not a great amount, but I don't have the money to buy these trinkets which are important to me." And they argue back and forth, and finally the pig says, "Well, let me see the president of this bank." The president comes out and introduces himself, and Paddywhack tells the president the pig wants a loan. He says, "How much?" "Well," he says, "he wants to buy some trinkets." And he says, "I know we don't give money to animals." And the manager throws up his hands. He says, "Come on, it's a knick-knack, Paddywhack. Give the hog a loan."